And we are live. JT here. Welcome to the huddle. The huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you. I want to take a moment to thank you, whether you are tuning in live as we stream into our Facebook community, whether you are watching the replay on YouTube or on Facebook, whether you're listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And here is my friendly reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. And my challenge is to you is to go all in on this conversation, to remove any distractions, to get laser focus on the here and the now. And my guarantee to you is that you will gain a valuable nugget of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sports, but more importantly, in the game of life. I've been looking forward to this different version of the huddle. Again, one of the things I often remind myself is that life is all divine timing. And I wanted to use today as an opportunity to do my first solo episode on the podcast. Now, one of the interesting facts, right? Because I always challenge my guests, when they come into the huddle is, what is an interesting fact? I had a coaching colleague who said we all had our quirks, right? We all have these things that make us unique and different, and I always challenge them to share something with our community. And the interesting thing about today's version of the huddle, the solo episode, is this is actually how it started, right? This is the seed of the huddle. These conversations used to actually be called Chalk Talk. And one of the reasons I've called the podcast The Huddle, one of the reasons I called it Chalk Talk was to pay homage to my roots, right? In sports, in coaching as an athlete. So today is going to look a little bit different. One of the amazing parts of my life journey, my life experiences, is that I constantly get to help and serve other people. As I often mention, my purpose in life is to show people what's possible when they go all in and truly bet on themselves. And that is what connects me to my love, my joy, and my peace, which is really where the magic of life happens. So today's huddle is all about you. If you are someone like me who does their best to reach for that next level of greatness, to always be in transformation of becoming the best version of yourself, then you'll want to stick around and listen up. So today, the intention for this episode of The Huddle is to share with you my blueprint to greatness. Okay. Now, the amazing thing about my life journey is that these ideas are not mine. I have been blessed to be around some great coaches and mentors who have shared wisdom with me. I have borrowed that wisdom from them. And it has allowed me to accelerate the results in my life, right? It's allowed me to get to where I want to go faster and with greater ease. So as I heard recently on a great podcast, borrowed wisdom accelerates your progress in life. Okay? So again, I challenge you to go all in on this conversation, get laser focused on the here and the now, and take one thing away from our conversation today. So this blueprint to greatness, what is it about? And before we get started, I just want to share with you where the inspiration to this got started. One, it was to pay homage, to celebrate how the podcast started, right? Where this idea of sharing these simple ideas. Two, I find many of the conversations that I have, either with my private coaching and consulting clients, whether it is in my role as I serve as director of sport with Football Ontario, or whether it's just in simply everyday conversations, that we all have a desire to do better in life. And it's from these conversations that I have found, again, from my lived experience working with people over the last 20 plus years, that very often the things that are holding you back in life are there's not a lot of different things. Like, it's usually just a few things. And what I wanted to do for today was just to shift your awareness a little bit, make you more aware of what's actually holding you back, so that we can and you can create a plan moving forward. So the first part of the blueprint to greatness is this. It revolves around the idea of purpose. And purpose is a word that gets used a lot, especially in this idea of, in this space of personal growth and self-development. And I had a great mentor that once shared with me this: the quality of the questions you ask yourself will determine your overall quality of life. And I remember her sharing that idea with me. And it's always resonated with me, like always challenging myself to ask new and different questions. So the question I have for you around purpose is, what do you want? What do you really want in your life? And if you actually give yourself permission to stop and think, I am sure that there is one area of your life that you want to improve in, that you want to see better results in. For you, it may be health. For other people, it might be relationships. For others, it may be becoming a better student. For some, it might be becoming a better athlete. Maybe it's better finances. Maybe it's a career change. Whatever that is, own it. Celebrate the fact that you are asking for what you want in life. And why I'm encouraging you to celebrate what you want in life is we have all, or many of us at least, have been conditioned to think, to ask for what we don't want in life. Right? For example, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to be second string. I don't want to get under an 80. Like those ideas, like that behavior, that programming that gets us to think about all the things we don't want is so interwoven into the DNA of most humans. It takes discipline of mind to be able to reprogram, to recondition, to retrain the mind to actually start thinking about what you want, like what you truly desire. And this brings me back to a story of where it's so important to be clear on what your purpose is. And if you're not sure right now, that's okay. So during my last year of teaching, I was very immersed in personal growth and self-development in my personal life, right? It was listening to podcasts, reading books, going to workshops, surrounding myself with different thinkers, different people that I had never really been around before. And one of the cool things about that was my principal at the time, who was very supportive of my growth, was always looking for opportunities for me to develop professionally, to really harness my gifts, my talents, and my abilities, and just create new opportunities for me to go around and share my passion for personal growth and self-development. I was a bit of a traveling circus. So I had the flexibility, I had the freedom to be able to go into different classes. Right? I had the ability to present to our staff. I had the ability to present to at a school board level, and I started to gravitate into the entrepreneurial world. But again, it just really reinforced this idea of what my purpose was. And I remember going into a grade 9 class. And one of the amazing parts about working with young people is that, sometimes young people get a quote unquote bad rap, negative rap, and all this, about what they are. But the one thing I've always admired and been inspired by with young people is that if you present them with different ideas, it's actually easier to share with them these ideas. They're more open because they've been on this planet less time. So there's less reprogramming that we have to do. And I went into this grade 9 class and we were doing one about, sort of this idea around purpose and, your why. And I asked them, what is your goal? And we did this as a group. And someone gave the example of, I want to, be healthier. Right? Okay, well, that's a good goal. It's general, but it's a start, right? And then when we took that very general goal, they were connecting to a want, right, of better. And from there, I was inspired to share with them an exercise that I had read and I'd come across from the Toyota Corporation, right, the car company. And it was a 5 why activity. interesting part is it's something that I still use with many of my clients because, again, it's a powerful question. It helps people to get the root cause of what they want. And I asked them, we did this as a big group, just picture this classroom here. I had never met most of these students before, got 30 grade 9s, different backgrounds, different wants, different motivations, all this. And I asked, okay, why do you want better health? And then, I had one person say, well, I want to feel better. Okay. Why do you want to feel better? Right? Because, and then that was the first why. The second why was around this idea of, I want to look better. Okay, that's great. That's good. Why do you want to look better? And then it came back to, well, I want other people to like me. And again, okay, that's good. So fast forward here, we're doing this exercise. And again, when you're doing these exercises, one thing I've learned is it's giving permission for people to play, to explore, to discover the answers for themselves. And it's understanding that there are no right or wrong answers. It's not positive or negative, not good or bad. It just, you're giving people permission, again, to play, to explore, to discover. And once we got it right there, we started to realize what they actually wanted. And when we really peeled back the proverbial layers of the onion, right? This, like, think of this 5 why exercise. It's like pulling the layers of an onion back. What we started to realize was that why these young people wanted to be healthier was they wanted to feel seen, feel heard, to feel appreciated, to develop and strengthen those deeper connections with their friends and loved ones. And it really was the most basic human need. So at the surface, it was, oh, I want better health. But as you start to peel back, what they really wanted, what they truly desired was to feel a deeper connection to other human beings, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel appreciated, which is really one of our fundamental needs as human beings. So it leads me to this idea of purpose, right? It's like, what do you want, right? And it's easy to look at the surface level answer, but really when you really go deep within, why do you want it? Like what is in deep, what's on your heart, right? And I'm not talking about this thing. I'm talking about the heart here deep in the subconscious mind, which is operating 96 to 98% of the time, right? It's what the early Greek writers referred to as the emotional heart, right? And that's where all the energy, all the enthusiasm, all the passion in life comes from. It's where things just are in flow, things feel effortless. So my question to you is, what do you really want? And for some of you, watching, listening to this, it might seem like a big idea. You might be thinking, I don't know what I want. Or you may be not listening to it. And the funny thing with that question is when you give yourself permission to really sit with that question, to really, again, play, explore, discover what that answer is, and you begin to tap into that imagination, to think in possibilities, it's amazing where your mind starts to take you. And the really cool part about that is it's often connected to what you love to do. And that might seem like a big idea, like, what do you love to do? But it's instinctual. How do I know that? Well, I have those reminders every day with my kids, right? Like as kids, when we're born, we instinctually understand what we love to do, right? You watch kids, they just play. They're here in the now, they're present, right? Not thinking about the 18 other things they have to do. They're just here in the now. So again, it's connecting to that play, that sense of play, that sense of exploration, discovery is where you'll find your purpose. So the first part of the blueprint to greatness is, again, having a clear purpose. The second part of the blueprint to greatness is this idea around plan. And the question I have for you, again, quality of questions that you're willing to ask yourself will determine your overall quality of life. Are you willing to challenge yourself with difficult questions, challenging ones? Questions are going to stretch you. So the question I have for you is, are you busy or are you focused? Are you busy or are you focused? And what I often relate that to, and this is where I find it interesting, I know from my experience that when I'm busy, that is where I feel like I'm running on the proverbial hamster wheel, right? Where I'm just operating in the doing. And based on my past programming, that's where I used to operate the majority of my life, right? Just the doing. And if you are a high quality athlete coach, you understand that, because that's what many high level athletes and coaches, they thrive in, right? It's the doing, right? The quote unquote hustle and the grind, right? So again, are you busy or are you focused? And again, it's a sliding scale, right? It's not a matter of just, you're always 100% busy or you're always 100% focused. It's a scale. It's like, how quickly can you get laser focused? Like if you're finding yourself distracted right now, how quickly can you get laser focused on what I'm saying, right? So which one of the two? Where do you fall on a consistent basis? And again, it's not right or wrong. It's not positive or negative. This is just becoming more aware of what behaviors we engage in more often than likely. Okay. And what I would share with you is, if you were busy, right, you always feel like there's never enough time, you're always running from thing to thing, then there is a gap in what a great mentor coach shared with me is called the knowing doing gap, right? Like knowing here, the doing is over here, right? So when we are busy, there's a wide gap between the knowing and the doing, right? We know we want better, but are we actually taking the consistent and focused action to get there on a daily basis, right? And again, the question is, how often are you closing that gap? The gap's going to be wide for everyone at some point in their life, right? The gap is wide for me in some moments of my day, right? Even with the highest performers, the gap gets wide. The difference between those that truly create success over the long term and sustainable is they can just close the gap quicker, right? The knowing doing gap just closes, right? And this is a practice. It requires discipline of mind. Your mind is like any muscle, right? The more consistent and focused repetition you give it, the more disciplined it becomes. It's like becoming better at push-ups. You need to actually perform the reps and sets of doing push-ups to become better at them. So again, how busy or focused are you? How wide is your knowing doing gap? If you want and desire better results, then you got to close that knowing doing gap more often. And closing this gap is not about working and trying harder. That's often the trap, right? Again, knowing, trying harder, working harder. Again, at some point, that turns into hustle and grind. Hustle and grind can only be sustained for so long before burnout occurs. And one thing I would encourage you to challenge there is, who said life had to be a grind? Now, are there moments where it'll feel like it? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I still experience those moments. But again, how quickly can you shift from the grind back to flow, back to the effortless way? It's a game. So that knowing doing gap, another way to reframe it could be, are your actions productive or not productive? Productive, not productive. And these are questions. And again, I challenge you, again, this is becoming more aware. This is learning to observe what's going on. It's not about judging, labeling things as good or bad, positive or negative, right or wrong, just simply observing them for the way it is. So what's your plan? What are you doing every day to become more focused? The more focused you become, that's when your results start to change. And again, your focus is like any mental muscle, right? You have these higher conscious faculties. You got 6 of them. What are you doing to train them every day to your focus? So again, we talked about the blueprint, purpose. We talked about the plan. Let's talk about the third P, the last one. Again, you can probably see my coaching background, right? Really simplifying things, simple ways to remember stuff. It's around this idea of principles. And principles are really interesting, right? One of the things that is a common saying in the coaching world, especially in the football world, is around this idea of EDDs. And what EDD stand for is everyday drills. And what I learned, again, I've been blessed to be around some amazing coaches that have coached at the highest levels, all the way down to the littlest people. And I've used every opportunity as a chance to learn something from them. The really cool part of my journey, maybe an interesting fact, is that typically I was always the baby on the staff. I was always the youngest. So I've always had the opportunity to really borrow wisdom from, again, people that have been doing this much longer than I have, which again has just allowed me to take some of that borrowed wisdom to make it my own so that I could truly help and serve people. So EDDs, why they're so important is you will always rise or fall to the level of your standards in life. Another way to look at standards are your habits. And the interesting thing about habits is it's not a matter of simply working and trying harder. Someone once asked me that question, like, don't I I just have to work harder? If it was simply a matter of working and trying harder, wouldn't most New Year's resolutions work? Right? Because everyone works and tries harder on that magical January 1st date. And for some reason, most New Year's resolutions, and we're talking like 90% of them, fail within the first 2 weeks of the new year. And it's not because the people aren't working or trying harder. It simply comes back to what are the habits? And you have been led to believe that your habits are simply more knowledge, that it's more strategy, that it's just continuing to take more on. And it's not. Let me give you an example here. So today marks the 1-year anniversary for the release of my book, You Are Greatness. And in the book, I share a story about one of the habits that we created my last year of coaching high school football was we created this bring it home mentality. Now, long story short, essentially what we did is we created the habit where the start of every practice was going to be a 4-minute conditioning period. The intention behind it was to push the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual limits of what our athletes thought was possible. And doing this day in, day out for the entire season allowed us to develop this strong foundation. Right? Again, the habit became the strong foundation of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual toughness. And when things hit the fan, and again, if any of you have played sport, if you've played sport at a high level, you understand that every game, every season, every week is filled with ebbs and flows. And we developed this habit of that we could fall back on, that things were never going to feel as tough as they did in practice. So when things got tough and challenging in practice, our athletes and our coaches elevated. They were empowered to overcome those challenges, those obstacles, that adversity, and they achieved their goal. And that one habit was a difference maker, right? And what I've come to learn from that is 96 to 98% of everything that you do, every behavior you engage in your life is habitual. Okay, they're unconscious. You don't even realize they're programmed. So our athletes unconsciously had developed this programming, they conditioned their mind, their body to be able to be calm and confident in spite of whatever was going on externally. And those habits, right? Those EDDs were the difference maker. Okay. So the real cool part about that is what we did through that Bring It Home program was we taught them how to think and act like a champion. Okay, and that's the difference. You can think like a champion, but if you don't combine it with the actions, then when it gets real, there's a good chance you'll tap. So it's thinking and acting as if you've already achieved your goal. So that is my blueprint to greatness. Okay, one that I've been blessed to be passed down and shared, okay, and board on best practice of some of my great coaches and mentors, and now I share it with you. Now, the question is, what are you going to do with the blueprint? And what I often remind people in the huddle is this: knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates great results. So take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today, so you can start achieving all the greatness you were meant to experience. And as I remind you every time in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask from this podcast is that if this resonates with you, then go share it with a friend, with a loved one, because the more people that we have listening, learning, understanding these ideas, the more people we will have reaching their next level of greatness. And just imagine what's possible when more people in this world are stepping into their greatness. Have a blessed rest of your Friday, and I'll chat with you next week in the huddle. Have a great day, everyone.